Hello, good morning. Welcome to the sixth session of our early career researchers manuscript writing course. I'm sure it has been a worthwhile experience in the last 6 weeks. Today, we'll be delving into a very important aspect of manuscript writing, which is abstracts. I would like to call abstract as a window to your manuscript. It's through the abstract people tend to glean into the content of what you write. So you must write it and write it well. And for those who have written my abstract before, I'm sure many of us struggle with how to construct abstracts, how to stay within the words limit. And this session is going to tell you all about that and more. I welcome Professor Morenike to take the floor and take us through how to write abstract and write it well. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you very much, Kudus, and thank you everyone for coming, those that are here, those that are still on their way. And also happy Ramadan to our colleagues that are fasting and are making time to be here. Like Kudus noted, abstract is very important. It's not just important for your manuscript, but for many, it's also important for conference presentation. You're writing your abstract well will get you the first recognition, and I'll be talking about the peer review process. The very first engagement with the journal that you're submitting to is the manuscript. And if it's poorly written, believe me, even if the content is excellent, the reject will happen with the abstract. So you have to master how to write abstract. Once again, once you understand the ABC to manuscript writing, then you're good to go. Just like every house, the framework can be excellent. Of course, the structure or the other addendum may not be beautiful, but because the structure, the framework is solid, you can be sure you're not going to have a collapse. And the beauty can be made and enhanced with time. But if the structure is faulty, it's done, it's gone. So learning how to construct that structure gives you an advantage. And once you learn it, once again, I repeat it very confidently, it is an ABC. And that's science. Science follows the rules. Once you understand the rules and you put the rules in place, you're very good to go. Once you can put the rules in place, what you will have is oftentimes a correction and less so a reject. Well, there might be one or two other reasons why you might get a reject, but get this right and you're good to go. I shared with you resources with respect to abstract writing. I think those resources are really good. If you spend time with them, you just see that what I'm going to say here is more like a repeat. I'm going to spend time with the peer review process, less so the abstract, because you have good resource materials to help you understand abstract writing well. Those three, I spoke to them, and it's the same thing I'm likely going to share here. Like I do emphasize once again, the objective of this training series is to get you into Q1, Q2 journals. Q1, Q2 journals are top journals, and top journals because this is where your work is not only visible, but it also has a high chance of being invested for use for policy and policy decision making and program design. Top journals like Q1, Q2 go through very good peer review processes, and therefore the global community can trust the output that you find in Q1, Q2 journals. Not that there aren't exceptions to the rule, but the likelihood of getting poor publications in Q1, Q2 is less so than when you compare it with other forms of journals. Those that have no Q rating, those that are not in Scopus Index, and Q1, Q3, Q4. Q2 all becomes very important because they also want to get a Q1 status. It's an elitist status for your journal, and I'm sure it also would increase the APC fees with their Q1 journal. I can tell you I've seen that in many journals. And when I work with my mentees, many times they study the journal, and I encourage my young mentees to get into those journal series that are still young, and because they're looking for people and manuscripts, they are likely to have cheaper APCs. But you know that the prospect of them growing into a Q1 is very strong. So you get on board early with the journal. And as they grow their strength into Q1, your rating of your manuscript also goes up. So those are strategies I work with. But once again, my focus is Q1, Q2. So what we're doing in this series of activities is strengthening your capacity. I've repeated this because one of the things I do appreciate is that quite a number of early career researchers have started writing. My experience in this field is that once you start to write, and you're writing and publishing successfully wherever it is that you're publishing, and it isn't affecting your promotion because wherever it is you publish, nobody is bothered about where it is. It's just the numbers that are counting. The stringent rules around doing what is required for Q1, Q2 becomes difficult for people, and the shift is difficult to make. Um, so I would encourage you that despite the successes you might have made with your writing style, if there's a need to change that style now, please do change it. It's not about research is not about the acquisition of manuscript numbers. No, otherwise you're going to extinct the minute you become a professor. You just extinct from the system. It's about you contributing to knowledge that can inform national development and growth. It's about you contributing to knowledge that can improve the life and well-being of individuals. It's about helping the world change from its current position to something better. If that is your focus, then you know that what you're doing is about quality research to be in that public space so that they can access the information for use. It's also very important that you engage very early because one of the things you're seeing is that information from Africa, inclusive of Nigeria, is limited in that space. Therefore, in the absence of that kind of information, they'll use proxy data. And one of the proxy data you get is South Africa and Egypt because they are the ones high publishers in that space. I am sure without anybody telling you, you would know that using Egypt and South Africa as proxy data for Nigeria is not appropriate. But for many of us that are engaged in policy development and national programs design, you find out that there are no Nigerian data. Yet you need data to inform the designs of what you want to do. Right. So you're either using proxy data from Egypt or South Africa. And where there is none from those places, you then use that from Europe. So don't be surprised that things are not working in your country because you, the elites, that can make the difference by generating the knowledge that can make the change are not working appropriately in those spaces. When you're working the articles as on the desktop as PhD thesis, master's thesis, they are not in places where anybody can come and search and find. Or when you decide to publish, they're published in journals that have no copies except for you and the journal office, and therefore nobody can come and find. So please, I am not, everybody has their personal standards for writing, everybody has their personal goals for where manuscript wants to be published. But our 8 weeks is 8 weeks and 1 hour each week because we're asking you to learn the ABCs for writing top journals. Feel free to ask questions on the space. If you're on the YouTube, drop your questions. We will get back and we're going to respond to the questions. And if you're on the platform, a WhatsApp platform, please ask questions and we can further strengthen them. When we talk about abstracts, like I noted, abstract is the second to the last thing you write. The last thing you actually write is your title. Many times there is a tentative title when you started, but the last thing you tend to finalize in the entire scheme of work is the title. Second to last is the abstract, and the abstract has its format. Once again, I'm going into an ABC job. I'm also what I'm saying here is very likely what is feasible for conference abstracts. Your abstract has 4 sections: the background, the methodology, the results, and the conclusion. This is conventional, and I could almost say that in 95% of abstracts for journals, this is conventional. Please look out for the instructions of the journal. I have seen journals that have variability in this. Some would say, write introduction, aim, the outcomes. There are variations. Please look out and follow the instruction of the journal. And for conferences, there might be variations. Please look out and follow the instructions of the conference organizers. Please note that when you're dealing with Q1, Q2 journals, they are not looking for manuscripts. Therefore, the ease of reject is very high for them. When you get to Q1, Q2 journals, you see that, oh, their publication rate is 16%, 15%, 18%, 20 something percent, which means the rejection rate is high. But when you look at the number of publications per year, despite the fact that it's 16%, they're publishing 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 manuscripts. Well, not 3,000, but they do get to over 1,000, close to 2,000 per year. So they are not begging for manuscripts. They are looking for top-rated manuscripts. If your abstract is weak, that is the point they're going to send it back. So pay attention to this, invest time in it, and get multiple eyes to see it and helps you to finalize. It can, once it gets through to the peer review, at least you have left the editor's table, and some other people can have their say to the journal, to the manuscript you submitted. Once you write the abstract, the background is the first. The background is not introduction. Oftentimes you find out that in the abstract you write background, but when you go into the manuscript body, you write an introduction. And that's because in the background, there are usually two components, an introduction and the aim of the study. The introduction is usually just one sentence, the one of the two sentences that you would find in the background. And I repeat again, background is just two sentences. One of the major problems I see, especially when I'm reading manuscripts from Nigeria and Africa, is that you end up having the background as 50%, if not 70, 80% of the content. It's not, that's not what it's all about. There's only one sentence that introduces you to the concept, the problem that you're trying to solve. Remember that your manuscript or your piece of work is about solving problems. So the first sentence is telling us what this problem is, and the second sentence tells us what the objective is. Finish. Writing the essay about what the problem is not enhancing. It's not enhancing acceptability or interest in the manuscript. Your ability to craft a concise introductory statement that problematizes the problem is the success of your introduction. What is it? Make it clear what this problem is. Early childhood caries is a public health crisis. Of course, that makes me want, what is a public health crisis? What is it that you're going to contribute to solving this problem? Problematize that problem. And that's the first sentence, just one sentence. The second is your aim of the study. Don't write 5 sentences about aim. If you have multiple objectives, that's it. Just write the aim. That's all for your background. The next piece is your methodology. And this is the big deal. You must spend time on the methodology. If you need space for your methodology, sacrifice the aim. If you need space for the methodology, sacrifice not the aim, sacrifice the introductory sentence. But don't sacrifice the content for your methodology. Why? Because for a Q1 journal, that is what the focus on, and that is what the manuscript is about. Once your methodology is poor, that's the end of your manuscript. It's in 24 hours, you get it back. It's finished. Because once the methodology is poor, you cannot repeat it. It's done. And bam, it's gone. Okay, so you spend time on the methodology. Your methodology should take the 50% of the space that you needed. Remember, when we are talking about the entire manuscript itself, we emphasized that the methodology is the big deal. And I noted as a proportion that if you have to write 5 pages, your introduction is 1 page, methodology is 2.5 pages, your result is 0.5 page, and your discussion and conclusion is 1 page. The methodology is the big deal. So you must spend time in writing and focusing on the methodology of your abstract. The opening sentence of your methodology should be your study design. This is a cross-sectional study. This is a clinical trial. This is a survey. And for those that are doing qualitatives, this is a case study. This is a phenomenological study. It must be the first sentence is your study design. The next is your target population. And the third is your study location. The fourth is about the date where your data was collected. Ironically, this four important information can be written in one sentence. This cross-sectional study recruited adolescents 10 to 15 years old in Ile-Ife between January and June 2024. I have answered 4 critical elements of my abstract in a single sentence. The next thing that you write are your study variables. You must list for us with clarity what your study variables are. This is not the place to say your study variable that you collected data and social demographic profile. And then when you're writing the result, all you write about is age and sex. If age and sex is all you collected, talk about age and sex. If there are variables that include your predictor and your outcome, or your independent variables and your confounders, write in summary what this is. It's not long sentences. It's about mentioning them. Remember, this is a brief place, so what you're doing is highlighting what you collected. The next thing that is very important is the statistical tool that you use to determine your outcome. If all you did was descriptive, it is a survey, you must mention it. If what you did was bivariate analysis when you were testing associations, whatever tool you use to test the association, you must mention it. If it's chi-square, if it is ANOVA, if it is non-parametric analysis, what is the tool you use? Please mention it. And if it is about information analysis where you use regression analysis, binary regression analysis, multinomial, multivariate, whatever it is you must mention it. And for those that are doing qualitative, what is it that you did? Did you do inductive analysis, deductive analysis, ground theory analysis? You must mention it. Okay, so those tools therefore matter. This is not the place to say you did starter and your p-values, or if you do have the space to add that, very well. But if you don't have the space, these are the priorities that you need to. Please ensure that this is comprehensive enough for us to understand the summary of what you will be finding in the body. Once again, once you're writing this piece also must be linking to the objective. We must be seeing that what you're doing in your methodology is answering your study objective. Okay. Usually for me, I define it very clearly. I collected data on the dependent variable. I will put it in bracket what my dependent variable is. My independent variables, I then put it there. And then my confounders, I put it there. Just listing is highlight. It's not like you're writing the story. My male, I collected male and collected female. I mean, if you have space, you can be that specific. But it's about highlighting. If I need more details, I'll go into the body. The next is your result. These are the things that you would want to put in your result. The very first line is your sample size. One of the major errors I see is people writing their sample size in their methodology. No, and you don't need to tell us you calculate your sample size, but your sample size must come in your results. If you recruited only 12 persons for your focus group discussions, or you recruited 32 people for your key informant interview or IDIs, please write it. The first sentence is your sample size. Then you go as much as possible, if you do have space, to describe your variables. So that means, if you studied 5 variables, you can tell us 15% were males, 32% were low-income earners, and 34% had carriers. Okay, you don't have to write all the variables, but the key ones in each of the sections of the variables, you show description. Please, when you're writing this description, it's not okay to just write the percentage. You must write the number, and in brackets, you include the percentage. One of the major errors I see is just listing the percentage. It becomes a problem because for many people, when they want to do systematic reviews, it also brings a challenge. And that can be one of the things that may end up causing your paper to be dropped. So when you're writing your variables, write the number first, 100 in bracket 22.2%. Okay, that's how you describe that. Once you're done, if your work is analytical in design, then you do your inferential analysis. That means you found an association between this and this. And please explain what this association is by writing the figures. So if you found an association, what was the adjusted ratio, odds ratio, what was the 95% confidence interval, what was the p-value? Please write it, okay? Because that is the only way that I know I am pressing. You pressed the computer and found that association, that you truly did an analysis. I have, however, come across a journal that says don't put any statistics in the abstract. It's 150 and don't put any statistics. I have come across such a journal, and it's a keyword journal. All right. So follow instructions. But where there isn't such a limitation, please put those figures. Know that in many places, abstract are quoted. People quote abstracts. So those figures in those spaces makes it possible for them to quote your abstracts. Include the and ensure the results are answering your study objective. So it's not just writing any results, just writing results, because you had results. The results must be answering your study objective. Your study aims to find a test association between this and this, then you write the result. And I can make inferences based on what I'm seeing, whether you answered it or not. However, in your conclusion, you'll be able to say that what the answer to the study objective is. So your conclusion also ends up like your objective, 2 sentences. First, the answer is the answer to the study objective. Wow, what was the answer? Okay, not necessarily repeating figures, but saying it in a narrative fashion. And then please make a recommendation. What does this imply? And so what? The second sentence is answering the question, and so what? And that is what the recommendation is, based on your finding, not extraneous things. And I remember I talked about that in some place, not something extraneous. So you found that girls readily eat more sweets than boys. So what? And then you recommend that education should be given more to girls and boys in the school. Where did that come from? Your study at no point showed that education was what made a difference. So what is it that we should do with that kind of your recommendation may be explore further by future research, but you conclude with 2 sentences, the answer to your study objective and your recommendation derived from the evidence from your study. Next thing you do is write your study title. Please note that there are requirements for study titles. That study title must include information on the study design. It must include information on the study variables. It must include information about the study population and location at the minimum. So this study is looking at so the title of the study, Association between age and antiretroviral use among adolescents living in Ile-Ife, Nigeria. You must have all this content, the study design. Association tells me that, yes, what I'm most likely doing is, sorry, I'm adjusting myself. I was uncomfortable. The study design tells you that, well, I'm doing a cross-sectional design, study design. If I'm doing impact, I know this is a longitudinal study. If I'm doing a clinical trial, you definitely would put something suggesting as clinical trials. The study variables are clear. It's age and antiretroviral use. The population at adolescents. And when I do adolescents, there's an assumption that it is 10 to 19. If it is not 10 to 19, please be clear about what it is. And then the location is Ile-Ife, Nigeria. I do not do a study in Ile-Ife and then say it's Nigeria, because Ile-Ife is not Nigeria. Ile-Ife is probably just 1 or 2 local governments of the 734 local governments in Nigeria. So you do not represent your study as Nigeria whenever it is not. So if you're doing a study in Southwest Nigeria, note to Southwest Nigeria, even in the title. If you're doing a study in Ile-Ife, please note it is Ile-Ife in the title. Do not misrepresent whatever your location is by exaggerating the location. If your study is online, then it is online. Okay, so if it's a geographical location, like I noted it is, if it's a non-geographical location, if it's global, okay, let us know, an online survey. All right, so for example, I gave an example of what I did, oral health practices and oral health status as indicators of suicidal ideation among adolescents in Southwest Nigeria. You would recall this is the title of the manuscript you had to study that I shared with you. And you can see things represented, oral health practices and oral health status and suicidal ideations are the study variables. The fact that I wrote as indicators means this is a cross-sectional study. When you write risk as indicators, risk indicators, then it is a cross-sectional study. If it is a predictor variable, then you're looking at something more than cross-sectional. This was a cross-sectional study. You see that it is among adolescents, and the study was done in Southwest Nigeria. For that title, for those that read the manuscript, you would agree with me that Southwest Nigeria is an exaggeration. The study was actually conducted in Ile-Ife, not Southwest Nigeria. So Ile-Ife cannot represent Southwest Nigeria. It was Ile-Ife, and the ideal thing with that title should be reporting that it's Ile-Ife. Okay. Now, please note, you've done the title, you've done the abstract. This is not the time. You're not yet ready to submit. You have to read through and be sure that there's everything that has flown. Not only you, your co-authors, and where you have mentors, please share with them so that they have an extra eye to read through. The fact that you're reading only doesn't qualify you for authorship. Please read the ICJME requirement for authorship. There are 5 criteria. Please try to meet all those criteria. Where you don't meet them, the listing, many Q1 journals will ask you for author's contribution. Please list appropriately. You never know where these things will go and when it might be an issue. So please list and attribute appropriately, which means if this person is only reading, then you write is only reading. Do not say that they were involved in the methodology data curation when they were not. So please represent appropriately. When you're using your words, please use it with sensitivity. I'll be talking about that briefly. I share with my mentees that, look, when comments come and then you're upset, oh, they don't understand you, it means you did not write it for them to understand you. Once you have a query by reviewers' comments, it means there isn't clarity. So you must write things that does not allow for double interpretation of that sentence. The sentence must be able to stand alone without a misinterpretation. It means exactly what it means. So pay attention to the word choices and the word arrangement. And I'll show some of the things that can show clearly that you might mix up just by using punctuation marks. It changes the meaning of the exact sentence. Scientific writing is not anything about ingenuity. It's about skills. And everybody develops skills. Therefore, if people are writing in the Q1 journals and they're just not 10,000s, you can. It's about you choosing to develop the skills. And like I said, it's just like a crossword puzzle that you develop skills to learn how to do logic reasoning to solve the puzzle. It's a word game in which the success is about beauty as well as effective communication. So you do it. Even as old as I am in the practice, I see my style changing more and more. And it changes by reading quality paper in the field, contributing to reviewing quality papers in the field. And then you're learning by seeing something better than what you're doing. And then you acquire it. You choose to do it. If you heard me, I said that you learn the skills by doing 2 things, by writing and by reading. And I'm emphasizing here that please know that your responsibility as a scientific researcher is also to review manuscripts. That is your social responsibility. Why? When you submit abstracts, when you submit manuscripts, I mean, a minimum of 2 people will review a manuscript. So why aren't you reviewing others? People are committing time to review yours. They are not retired people. They are people that are busy, but feel the social obligation to also review. So if you also submit manuscripts, you must review. If in a year you submit 4 manuscripts, remember 8 people will be reviewing your 4 manuscripts. Please agree to review at least 8 manuscripts for others for the year. Make it part of your target. And list it as part of your social responsibility. Please, once again, and this is an exercise that I noted, and very clearly, when I use a word, said Humpty Dumpty in the rather scornful voice, it means what I choose it to mean, neither more or neither less. It can be your words. Every sentence in your manuscript, number 1, must have a reason for being there. If you can remove sentences and the meaning of your words in the manuscript are not lost, then remove them. Because you need to be concise. The more verbose you are, the more you increase the chance of misunderstanding of what you want to communicate. And I emphasize this especially for we as Africans who are very verbose. We want to say something, we'll say many words, and yet we never say what we want to say. It is the way we think. We expect the other person to be able to interpret what we say and make meaning out of it. It is a norm in African culture or talking, but that is not appropriate for journal writing And especially in Q1, Q2, when the reviewers in those spaces are usually people from the global north who don't understand this Vapu's language. And the global north, I've given this example several times. In the global north, they start with what they want to say. Your mother died. And then they build on it. They don't say 50 sentences, and then it is you that will conclude that my mother has died. Okay? Because that is how, for example, I, as a mother, an African mother, my child will ask me, can I eat the bread? You know, go and eat it, expecting that she will understand that she should not eat it. And she will understand because she's an African child. But somebody that didn't grow up in Africa would not understand that go and eat it means don't go and eat it. This is our way of expression. Please note that is not viable in the manuscript space. It is not viable. So please learn. It's a lot of learning. And that's why I said, once you have written your title, which is the point where you put your dot on your manuscript, you still have to get people that has the external eyes to help you to read and help you to do this kind of things. As no matter how old you are and you're from the African context, you need somebody to help you to do this. And these are two examples about precision in statement. The first one says, my objective is to determine the prevalence of jaundice in preschool Nigerian children. And at the same time, my colleague writes, determination of prevalence of jaundice in preschool children in Nigeria are not the same. And sadly, many times we find that we write the first. Or determination of prevalence of jaundice in preschool Nigerian children suggests that for every single child, you took data about their nationality. And therefore, for those that reported their nationality, you only determine the prevalence for those who are Nigerians. But never, I mean, not never, most times we never collect data about nationality. We just collect the data amongst children in Nigeria and then you conclude that Nigerian children. No. What you did was to determine the prevalence of jaundice in preschool children in Nigeria, which is more representative of what you did. The second has to do with the semantics, the risk of cancer in HIV children rather than the risk of cancer in children with HIV. When you say the risk of cancer in HIV children is stigmatizing. There's no HIV children. What you have are children living with HIV. There are children that are not living with HIV. There are children that are living with HIV. Therefore, you must be conscious of the use of stigmatizing language. There are no cancer children. There are no cancer men and women. You must avoid the use of stigmatizing language. And therefore, in the bit to be brief, you cannot be disrespectful with your language. So please know that communication matters. So I will talk about that a little further. Also, when you're using languages, be conscious that there are jargons that you have acquired in your specialty. Apologies, I'm from the biomedical sciences, and therefore my examples are very heavy biomedical, but we do have jargons in our professional language. When you are writing, avoid these jargons. For example, in medical sciences, we talk about, the mass was biopsied. It's not English. Mass was biopsied. It's not English. It is a biopsy of the mass was performed. That's English. The mass was biopsied is a medical jargon. The felon developed leukoplakia. Felon is cards. But for those in vet medicine, this might be a normal language. Please, it's not normal. The cats develop leukopenia. It's welcoming. Or you think exams were performed. Are you talking about examination that we all have to sit in the same room and write? Whereas for medical people, exam means they did a clinical examination. Okay, it's not. So be conscious of this. The patient was prepped. That means the patient was prepared for surgery. You can't write the patient was prepped in the manuscript. The patient was prepared for surgery. That's what you did, not prep. Those in surgery would understand the language prep, but it is not so universal. The fact that you use it in your own community doesn't mean it's a universal acronym or a universal brevity. Okay, so be conscious of this. Once again, I noted, watch out for jargons. Also, do not find new faces or new usages. Even if there's a new acronym or a new language being used in town, I beg, as someone just coming into the field, not a world recognized individual. Don't use those words. Use the one that is still commonly used. People like Nobel laureate Femi Soyinka, I mean, yes, Wale Soyinka, they can coin new words anytime, and their paper will be published without even peer review because it's big deal. Don't use new acronyms and abbreviations or new terminologies. Okay, don't leave it to the world gurus. When you become a world guru, you would use new terminologies and everybody will jump on board. Okay, until then, just follow existing terminologies. Minimize the use of acronyms. Please note that acronyms and abbreviations are only used once you have used that word 3 times or more. Don't use an acronym when it is only once that you use that word, even if the acronym is popular. You only use acronyms and abbreviations once that word has been used 3 times or more. All right. And please read, like I've said, to identify biases in languages. It's very important that we do this. We have been brought up normally in a community where bias is normal, where there's always a they and them, where there's always a better and a less. Be sensitive to this risk of you being subjective in your language and consciously read to eliminate this bias. Okay. Um, and it's also the use of the English language. Without proficiency in it, you would fall into that trap. It takes a lot of practice, but you choose to practice when you are aware of the feasibility of this happening. And these are the kind of things we have. We're working in a world where there's gender neutrality. You can't write in a paper policeman when there's police officer. You can't write mankind when you can write human race. You can't write chairman when you can write chairperson. So these are the gender neutral terms you must be very conscious of when you are. Also be very conscious of the dichotomies and judgment that you might bring in the representation or in your writing, especially when it has to do marital status, sexual orientation, race, and ethnicity. When you label things as normal, for example, I know very well in our environment, say the innocent child. So which child is not innocent? Or the normal girls versus lesbian. Who tells you lesbian girls are abnormal? Even if in your heart you believe it, this is not where you start writing it in. Why? Because when you write a manuscript, you are stating to the world that I am bringing an objective evidence. I am bringing an objective world evidence into the global space for action. But when the languages you are using is showing subjectivity and bias, you cannot prove to the world that what you have done is objective in its way. As much as possible, the normality and neutralization of languages projects your objectivity. And therefore, you must consciously dissociate yourself from your cultural, ethnic, religious bias in sharing global information. I remember very well once when I read a manuscript that somebody, one of my mentees, she was in a mentorship, manuscript writing mentorship program, and then she wrote a paper. That was a fee pay program. So we were supposed to support them to write the manuscript and then do it for 3 months, and then they can write a second one. So she wrote on female sex workers. And she was discussing it. Immediately I wrote, I said, you must be a pastor in a church. Jeez. That even me, I can't even finish writing that because it's so judgment laden. It's so obvious that even the result you saw, the way you are discussing it, is so judgment laden. And then she laughed. But she wrote that paper beautifully after that. She spent quality time. She got very good results and she was able to share to the non-judgment laden language that showed objectivity of what she felt. So avoid languages that are labeling and avoid languages that is a dichotomy that reflects that there's a we and them, and that we, the researchers, are the superior, and the them, we are helping them. Avoid such dichotomy. Like they are always sick. Who is this they? Aren't you also part of aren't you always sick also? So who is this they? Rather, right, people with immune defects are always sick. There's no they in that language. You describe specifically the collective that you're talking about as they. So a they and we thing, avoid as much as possible in your languages in the manuscript. And then use shorter, simple terms that makes clarity very important and does not allow for double interpretation. Things like at this point in time, right now, high degree of accuracy. There's no high degree of accuracy. Accuracy is accurate. You know those kind of languages where you want to emphasize, and then at the end of the day, you're actually causing problems. Like, you know, I'll find such example. Post-operative stop surgery. Neonatal is newborn. Simple language. Neonatal is a medical jargon. The normal language is new. Implement, do. Okay, so remove technicalities and use simple things that even a GSS 3 can appreciate. Once a secondary school student can read your piece of work, then you are good to go. I recall very well when I was younger, and I had a cousin living with us who was in medical nursing school. I, in my secondary school, could read and nursing textbooks. I used to read them, because the language was simple. Very simple. I would read and enjoyed reading. So it's the same with your manuscripts. You must develop the skills to write very simple language that makes it possible for your authors to read and enjoy in a way that once they touched your manuscript, they would not drop it until they've reached the conclusion. Once you have somebody dropping your manuscript 3, 4 times, it's a problem. You already have a problem. It's not interesting. If it's interesting, they would read to the end. Okay? Please attend to grammar and numbers and other things. There are conventional ways around numbers. The difficulty is not to write, but the big deal is about writing what you mean. So it takes you reading over your manuscript. I remember one of the manuscripts I did very early in my research years, and then we brought all the senior persons. I had to revise the manuscript 27 times. 27 times before it went to publication, 27 times. But I was happy because it got through and it went through straight. Okay. Punctuation matters. This is one of the greatest things I see, one of the greatest problems, punctuation. There was a time I had to ask my colleagues, have they eliminated full stop? Because you'll see people writing without full stop, comma, and sincerely, I have to write. Maybe I'm the one behind, I'm old now, maybe I'm behind convention. Then you'll see some people, I've seen one and it was published. Of course, it was published in one of those journals that you put on at the table. The entire story is one paragraph. I say, don't you understand the use of paragraph? So let's look at this word when it talks about punctuation. So this professor says a word without a woman without a man is nothing. Please punctuate. That's what the man wrote. A woman, comma, without a man, comma, is nothing. While the woman wrote a woman, colon, without her, comma, man is nothing. These are the same words, but the punctuation makes all the difference. Okay, so punctuation matters. Be very conversant with where you appropriately should use a comma, a colon, a semicolon, full stop, because it matters. Okay, numbers also matters. Please note that when you have numbers that are 10 and above, you can use figures. But when you have anything less than 10, you write them out in words. So when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, write it in words. It's only 10 and above that you can write in figures. There are, however, exceptions to the rules. Like when you're writing a unit of measurement, you can write in figure. When you're doing things like multiply by 5, second decimal, fractions, 3 weeks ago, 1 a.m., those are some exceptions. But the normal rule, once the number is less than 10, please use words. Once you submit it, okay? Never be afraid to try something new. If you've never written to a Q1, if you've done every single thing that we have guided you on, take the giant step. Try something new. Remember that amateurs built a hack and it withstood the rain for 40 days and 40 nights. Yet professionals built the Titanic and it did not stand the rain. Not even, it did not even stand for one day. It did not finish its first trip. So try something new, okay? Be willing to take the giant step. People are doing it so you can, okay? Once you are finished and you're ready to submit, please check again about the accuracy of your title. Ensure that the abstract is in line with the length required, like the journal, not the length you've given yourself. Check the length of the journal. Is it within the length? Check the introduction and be sure that it's concise and everything that should be there is there. Look at the text and writing sequences. I remember when I was younger, one of the headaches I used to end up, by the time I'm through, I send the manuscript, I always forget the abstract. So now when I write abstract and leave the page of the abstract and write. So that way I never forget. Okay. I forget. It's happened too often. In fact, I saw it happen again very recently this year. I missed out the abstract. So I purposefully put abstract there as a space when I start and then go. So you must check these things. Um, as everything, nothing is missing. Recheck and recalculate the figures in your table. Make sure they are 100%. If you're going 100, make sure that the figures are not miswritten. This is a major error that oftentimes happen. And if you have used visuals, be sure that they are there. There's nothing missing. It's submitted with the materials. Ensure that the references are correct and that used the referencing style. There's nothing more upsetting when you're bringing a paper that has been rejected in one journal to another, and you cannot reconfirm the paper to the new journal style. It already gets people negatively inclined to your paper. Remember that the people reading your manuscripts are not robots. They have human beings who have emotions, and therefore the way you write must appeal to people's emotion to get them on your side. Not that when you write rubbish, um, they give you a pass, but at least they are positively disposed to your paper as they are reading because you are doing things that is right and appropriate. Please verify the submission format and adhere to the submission format. Number your pages, double check before you go and then submit the document. Many people do not take the cover letter important, but please note the cover letter is very important. In Q1, Q2 journals, the cover letter is very important. You can get reject because of your cover letter. And I can tell you, I got a reject. I remember we were writing a series on the SDGs and early childhood careers, and we decided as a group that we'll send all the manuscripts so that all the sequences can be found in BMC Oral Health. And then one of them was rejected. So the table of the author, of the editor. So I now wrote the editor down, why? How can this be? And then he wrote it down, said, it's a cover letter. The way you wrote your cover letter made the SDG 8, I think, a priority rather than the oral health. Please rewrite your cover letter in a way that is the oral health, that is the prominent thing, and then it suits the journal. So I had to rewrite. So the cover letter matters. As much as possible, please Google the name of your editor and don't just write their editor, write their professor or their doctor, whoever is the editor, mention them by name, mention the journal by name. Okay, include the title of your manuscript, include a brief about your key findings and how it is relevant to the audience. Give the name of the corresponding authors. Where it is needed, give the names of suggested authors and give author journal requirements. Please make sure you read about the cover letter requirement for your journals. For Q1, Q2 journals, they have requirements of what should be in their content. If there isn't any, please use this outline. But where there is, they most times will tell you precisely what they want. Please note that it is read. So before your manuscript goes to reviewers, the editors take decisions. They would read, are you conforming to their standards? Do you have ethics clearance? They look at all that. If it's not conforming, they send it back, thank you, and they reject. They read the cover letter. Once that has passed, then they will read the abstract. If the abstract is terrible, it doesn't say anything in methodologies, it's obviously going to be a problematic paper, then they reject. Okay? So when you have now your manuscript has now been reviewed by the journal and they send you comments, please be respectful in responding to reviewers' comments. Take your time. Don't do it in a hurry. Respond to every single comment. And even when you disagree with evidence. Okay, I remember when in my very early writing days when I followed the Scopus, with the Scopus guideline, I would have to write strength and limitation as my second paragraph rather than the last paragraph. And I kept getting comments that no, it should be the last paragraph. I'll send them the stroke. I had followed the stroke guidelines. And please, according to the stroke guidelines, this is where it should be. And this is the reason why it should be there. And more nowadays, I don't get those comments. I'm sure people have also updated their own skills. That way, you're also helping the reviewer strengthened. So you must disagree with evidence. Okay. And when you're responding, please respond clearly. Be happy to receive comments. When you don't receive comments, it's a bad thing. Be happy to receive comments. I tell people there was a journal where I sent papers 3 times and my papers got published, but I didn't receive comments. That was the end. I don't go to that journal again. The comments that peers give you strengthens the paper. And once the paper is strengthened, you can be sure that the chances of your paper being used as a foundation for somebody else's work is going to be high because the evidence are solid. So look out for comments. If you don't have comments, it's a bad thing. No, don't rejoice when you don't have comments. Ask for. Of course, the exceptionals. This paper, the comment will be this paper is good. Let it go for review. Then that is a comment. But people just publish your paper without any comments. Don't rejoice over that, because what happens is that your manuscript will stay there 50 years. Nobody will quote it because all the flaws that are there, others can see, and they're not going to touch it. All right. And then please do a thorough review. Many times when you write, please write and say, "Oh, this is the revision you made." You can find it in line 110 or 120, or you can find it in the second paragraph in the manuscript. They will go to the manuscript and see things, but you also, in the reviewer's comment that you're sending back, you must put those details. And then when you get your galley proof, that means your comments have been accepted. It has gone up to the journal, and they're about to publish, and then they give you a galley proof. Please read through it carefully, mark corrections, and return the galley proof in time. This is one of the places I usually flaunt. I have a problem reading over, but I have a member of my team, Joma. I love him because I wait for him. He can read over. He will see the dots and cross the T's and mark the I's. I look forward to him. I wait for him to do that because he has that competency. So I have my research team that definitely complements everything. We all complement ourselves. I bring my strength, they bring their strength, and we move together when we're doing studies. So those are the things you also should know. You're not bringing your friends to become researchers. You're bringing people that are complementing yourself. And then when you publish, please celebrate. It is pride, it is credit, it's important work. You must rejoice, about it. Tell people. Please know that practice makes perfect. Review your manuscripts, and ensure that your manuscripts are written to address contemporary ideas, contemporary issues, bring in novelty. You yourself must read regularly to be alive to the context and the situations of the day. And one of the ways to read regularly is also being a manuscript reviewer. Please, when you write, never compromise the truth. Research is not about you. It's not about you getting promotion. It's about putting knowledge in the public space so that it can be used for the general good, including national development. Please check your grammar. It's disheartening. I remember once when at the galley proof, at the proofreading stage, this lady kept sending back to me. And then the last time, I still had one grammatical error on the very first line. It was the only one left. She just sent me back to start all over again, all over. She was upset, and I could see why she was upset. But I read and read, with my eyes, and there was just one grammatical error left, and it was in the first line. She just sent me to the beginning. It can be very annoying. So please check your grammar. Have somebody read the manuscript. You can't do everything. You wrote the manuscript, you did it, and then you had one R. You will find error. Let somebody use an external eye. Build your work through your subsequent research. The next research to build on the finding of this one. Don't do research. Build a history of research life for yourself. Be known for something. Oh, she does early childhood queries. Oh, she does adolescent health. Oh, she does. Let's be known. Build it. And it's by building on your subsequent work. I want to take this time to say, it's skills. Manuscript writing is a skills. You can acquire it. You learn to write. And anybody can acquire skills, and anybody can acquire new skills. But be aware that it is your responsibility to protect integrity of science. Please do that by writing appropriately, never exaggerate, never engage in research misconduct, do not go to predator journals, and ensure that you're doing the best. On that note, I want to invite you for the African Voices Research is an online virtual conference that the Manuscript Writing Hub Academy is setting out to do 20 to 22nd of May. And you're seeing top researchers, Professor Croatia, Abdul Karim from South Africa. She's a global top female researcher. I think she's actually the topmost in Africa. Professor Isaac Agaku, as well as Professor Oyewale Tobari. Please, I'm looking forward to you registering. We will share the link with you. On that note, I want to thank you for listening and hand over to Kudus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. The take home for me is never be afraid to start new things. Um, I'm sure all the listeners have had something to learn from this presentation. So I'll go quickly to the chat to pick questions. So the first question I'm picking, ma, is from Olugbake. She's asking, can we use Grammarly or Search to edit our work?
Yes, please. Yes, you
She's
can.
asking,
Yes, you can.
okay. How long should cover letter be?
I think one page is okay. One page, single line is all there is. You can tell everything you need to tell inside a single page, but there's nobody gives um, restrictions on the length. Thank you. Over.
Okay. Oh, there's this question here. Okay, I'll thank you for the presentation. I always think introduction and background of study are the same. Thanks you, ma, for the clarification. She's not asking, what about abstract and background? Is it the same thing? Can we include background of study and abstract in the same paper? Okay, let me allow you to.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think I understand that. An abstract contains
Yeah.
background, methodology, result, and conclusion. So I'm not sure background and abstract is the same thing. Abstract contains four things. Background contains two things, introduction and your objective. I hope that helps. Yeah.
Okay. So the next question is, what is Gali proof?
A Gallup proof is that, once your paper is accepted, before they publish it, they would share with you a proof of what they will share with you the sample of what they're going to publish and they send it to you to make final minor corrections. So that's a Gallup proof. Okay. So that's before they get to press, they have accepted, and then because they go to press, they will share with you, this is how it's going to be. Please do any final edits you might find, minor corrections is usually what they require. That's what's the curriculum. Over.
All right. Falaka is asking if we can use abbreviation in abstract.
No, no abbreviations in abstracts. Oh, well, no. I retract. No abbreviations in title. If you want to use abbreviations in abstract, please note that you must have used it at the first use. You must have defined it at the first use, and then subsequently you can use the abbreviation in the abstract. But please, no abbreviations in the title. Over.
Okay. Can we also use GPT to edit our manuscript or generate ideas to build on?
I
I think
think
we have a session.
yes, we have a session on that in 2 weeks' time. Please join, and then you can learn a lot about ethical
Next
use
week, man.
of. No, it's the one after. It's supposed to be next week, but
Okay.
she's required to change the time. So next week we'll be
Okay.
doing the a thing about publishing in
African.
African journals, yes, and then she will take it last. Please join that
Okay.
Damilola Olanipo, so that you can learn appropriately about ethical use of research. It's not just enough to say yes or no, but you must know the borderlines. Yeah. Thank you. Over.
Okay. Gregory is thanking you. When working with people with infertility, can I differentiate both as fertile and infertile males and female?
I'm sure you know the answer. Fertile and infertile men is stigmatizing. Infertile male, infertile female. You will say male with infertility, females with infertility. You can't say infertile male is stigmatizing. So learn how to use the words appropriately. Usually, conventionally, when we're using languages within ourselves, we use this kind of languages. But when you're writing, please don't use them because it's stigmatizing. So I won't write infertile male. I won't write infertile female. I'll write males with infertility. That is more appropriate. Thank you. Over. We just have 1 minute to
All
go.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is from Zubeida, and thanks for what you do on LinkedIn for the program. She's asking, please, man, do we identify the journal we intend to submit our paper before commencing writing?
Excellent questions, Sudeba. And I want to thank you for projecting this program on LinkedIn. Thank you for what you do. Yes, this is usually what many people don't do. They usually write and they after start to look for journal. The ideal thing is to actually find the journal before you start writing. I remember my mentor in the US said this thing, and it was very strange to me. But with my practice in writing, I found that very reasonable. Why? Because once you know the journal you want to submit to, you will fit your writing to address the context of the journal rather than just writing your heart and then starting to look for the journal that it fits appropriately, it becomes a problem. So yes, Zudaba, the right thing is to find the journal, identify the journal first before writing the context, even from your introduction. You, of course, you might have your data and then wanting to write, but yes, I found this is the best way to go rather than the other way around. Thank you very much.
Can I pick the last one, ma? We're just on top
Okay,
of the
then.
hour.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
thank
we're
you.
on top of the hour.
Um,
Please give us 2 more minutes and then we'll finish.
yeah. So as a co-author, um, what do you do when an article has been rejected twice? How do I convince the first author for proper corrections?
I don't know how you will convince your first daughter. I have no idea about how you have to do that. You also must be working in sync amongst yourself
Together.
and whatever it is that you're doing. You must be a team rather than individuals and collectively working on the paper. If your paper has been rejected twice, you go to the third and the fourth and the fifth. I have papers that has walked around the journal spaces for about a year or two, but it has walked around the journal spaces a year or two because I have chosen that I'm not going less than um, Q1, Q2 journal level. I usually stay with Q1, but if I've walked around for a while, then I go to Q2. And what I do is then ask, because I've had manuscript that they just reject without comments. I know there's a problem. When project manuscripts are rejected without comments, it is reject from the editor's table, and then they
Thanks,
have
suggestion.
nothing. Yeah. And then one other thing that I've noticed is also they don't understand your language. When you're writing like the African, they can't relate with it. So they can't read it. It doesn't make context with them. It might get well published in a West African journal that understands the language, but not with them. So they reject. So when it's going like that, I go ask, what is the problem? I ask them. Many will give you the time to explain. Many may not. But once a paper is rejected 2, 3 times, I know that there must be a fundamental flaw with that journal, with that manuscript. When it's fitting and they're rejected, there's a fundamental flaw. So I step back and read properly. And many times when I step back and read, I now see what the problem is and then write it again and go. But there are places also I've written contentious issues, contentious debates in ethics, and then you don't find a home early. And I'd had to do one for about 2 years and it finally got published. So yeah. Um, I don't know about convincing, but please keep at it, even if it's rejected. Go use the editor's comment. And just to note, I remember in my very early days of writing, I didn't have a mentor. What I used to do was write to a Q1 journal. I knew it was going to get rejected, but in those days, they would write comments, long comments. Then I use it. That's how I learned writing. Then it was purposeful. I know I would get a reject, but I got to a Q1 journal, top journal. Then they will send their comments, pages of comments. I will now use that comment to revise and go to another Q1 journal and I get accepted. I'd never had a mentor, so that was how I learned writing. Okay, so don't get discouraged and work with your co-author in a way that you bring in the expertise. So take the journal, take the manuscript, edit it yourself, and then show them, oh, it has improved. And I'm sure your first author will be willing to go a second or third mile to get it submitted. Thank you very much. And thanks for waiting to the top of the hour. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, ma. I think with this, we'll round up today's session. I'll meet again next week. We've been given all that is required for us to write a manuscript successfully. So never be afraid to start a new thing. And today is the day to start writing your manuscript. You have a lovely day. Thank you, Prof.
Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Okay.
I can see some questions. You can move your questions to the WhatsApp page so that it will be answered there. Thank you.